To prevent citizens and officials from fleeing, CCP tightens border control, suspends passports, making leaving China nearly impossible. Security policies invading privacy by checking passengers' phones and devices are deterring foreign visitors from coming to China. Airports, restaurants, shopping malls, and streets are deserted. A deadly silence blankets China, and the dire economy is visible to the naked eye. Despite declaring a fight to the end and refusing to yield, why has the CCP suddenly agreed to a trade negotiation deal and consented to reducing tariffs on U.S. imports to 10%? U.S. House unanimously passes Falun Gong Protection Act, earning widespread praise. Bill delivers a resounding blow to the CCP. Dragon-shaped flying object reappears in Xi'an. Netizen records stunning dragon roar. Jinan witnesses purple night sky. Welcome back to New Century, where every fact matters and every voice deserves to be heard. To prevent citizens and officials from fleeing, CCP tightens border control, suspends passports, making leaving China nearly impossible. A female blogger stated, "Going abroad in 2025 is really difficult. Many places no longer allow people to apply for passports. Does anyone know why? Nowadays, it's becoming harder for Chinese people to leave China." A vlogger shared that many of their friends have noticed the process of traveling abroad has become more complicated. Passport policies in regions such as Fujian, Jiangxi, and Hunan have tightened. Some friends who used their passports to return to China were contacted by local authorities and asked to cancel their passports. Now, exiting the country is stricter than before. Many people have encountered various issues at the border, with some being directly turned back. Not only are visas often useless, but travelers might also be restricted from leaving the country again for some time. The vlogger noted that many new questions have been added at border checkpoints. Whether traveling for leisure, business, or to visit family, border officers carefully inquire about your itinerary. During inspections, your luggage and phone information may also be checked. Items like invitation letters and chat records are included in the scrutiny, and if anything is deemed suspicious, you may be denied passage. Even with a ticket and visa, these may go to waste. A netizen shared that when they tried to leave, they were detained in a room and questioned for over an hour before being released. Customs is now extremely strict, they said. I was kept in a room for over an hour, and they repeatedly asked why I was going to Thailand. For those in China considering working remotely abroad, passing through customs is highly unlikely. On May 6th, a vlogger posted related invoices and documents, stating that obtaining a passport in Shanghai is more challenging than immigrating, and the required materials are excessive. When asked why exit management is so strict, the vlogger suggested two main reasons. One is to control the number of people leaving the country, and the other is to reduce cross-border criminal activities. However, some netizens disagreed, arguing it's not about cross-border crime. They believe the authorities are simply afraid everyone will leave. Following the 3-year pandemic, many Chinese citizens have illegally entered the United States through South and Central American countries to seek asylum. According to U.S. government data, 24,000 mainland Chinese entered the U.S. via this route in the financial year 2023. Data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection indicates that from October 2022 to April 2023, more than 6,500 mainland Chinese citizens were arrested at the U.S.-Mexico border, the highest recorded figure, representing a 15-fold increase compared to the same period the previous year. Among those crossing the U.S.-Mexico border in recent years were many professionals from various industries. They earned well in China and held enviable social positions, yet they chose to leave their homeland, primarily due to oppression from the Chinese Communist Party. In 2024, the U.S. began tightening its policies. After Trump took office, he ordered a crackdown on illegal immigration. As a result, more migrants from China are now heading to Europe. A blogger asked, "What's going on? Why are Chinese people rushing to go abroad?" They noted that people of all ages, from the elderly to young children, are trying to leave. For middle-aged people, it's about securing a better future for their children. For young people, it's driven by pressure and the desire to earn money abroad. For children, it's because their parents want to spare them the struggles they faced in China. In early 2023, the international human rights organization Safeguard Defenders released a report stating that, according to data from the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the number of Chinese asylum seekers has surpassed 1 million since Xi Jinping took office. This figure does not include those who left China through regular immigration channels without seeking asylum. The current migration trend is one of the clearest examples of voting with your feet under Xi Jinping's authoritarian regime. It strongly reflects how his regressive policies and the growing fear instilled by the Chinese Communist Party have intensified pressure on the Chinese people. However, leaving China is no longer easy. A Chinese blogger also reminded people that when traveling abroad, airport officials might suspect you're attempting to escape and send you back. Not only is leaving China heavily scrutinized, but those entering are also closely examined, including both Chinese and foreign nationals. A blogger shared, "I really don't understand. I just returned from abroad, traveling from Hong Kong to Shenzhen. They started flipping through my passport, carefully examining it 4 or 5 times. I've only traveled abroad a few times, and those trips were all straightforward. Yet they went through my passport thoroughly. It didn't stop there. They also checked the travel photos on my phone. I saw even more outrageous examples online where people were asked about their shopping lists and travel plans. My gosh, I was traveling to a visa-free country, and they still demanded all these things. I really don't understand." In April 2024, China's Ministry of State Security announced new regulations, significantly expanding law enforcement's authority to investigate people's mobile phones and other electronic devices. These rules apply to both Chinese citizens returning to China and foreign visitors. In fact, several years ago, Chinese customs began randomly inspecting the electronic devices of incoming passengers. Now, these administrative and law enforcement procedures are being standardized through legal measures. These measures are increasingly deterring foreign tourists from visiting China. US-based political commentator Tan Jin-yun stated that the Chinese Communist Party's primary goal is to prevent foreign information from entering China as much as possible. He believes this is part of a broader trend toward a wartime mechanism, implementing soft forms of closed-door policies. Chen Daoyin, an independent political scholar living in Chile, explained that China's law enforcement practices have always been region-specific, targeting key individuals and areas. For example, individuals associated with active human rights groups in Japan, the United States, and Europe, such as those involved with the Xinjiang independence, Tibetan independence, or Falun Gong, are likely to face heightened scrutiny. Chen Daoyin suggested that Chinese citizens purchase a separate phone for international travel to avoid unnecessary trouble, fearing that officials might betray and join the CIA, the CCP, tightens control measures. A June 6, 2024, report by the Beijing-friendly Hong Kong media outlet South China Morning Post stated that, despite the gradual reopening of the country after the pandemic, authorities continue to tighten controls on overseas travel for public sector employees and state-owned enterprise staff. The scope of these controls has expanded to include not only nearly all public officials, but also most employees in state-owned enterprises, financial sectors, and leaders of schools and hospitals. Chinese issues expert Yue Shan stated that the CCP has historically imposed strict controls on outbound travel, primarily to prevent dissidents from seeking freedom abroad and to stop officials from fleeing. The recent escalation of travel restrictions may be linked to the CIA's release of 2 Mandarin language videos openly attempting to recruit CCP officials to defect. These videos target Chinese dissidents, including both high-ranking and grassroots officials, dissatisfied with the CCP. Chinese issues expert Wang He believes that the greater the CCP's sense of crisis, the more it will tighten control, leading to worse outcomes. It's not just ordinary citizens criticizing the CCP now. Many CCP officials also share an apocalyptic mindset. They recognize that the regime could collapse at any moment and want to avoid being tied to it. Australia-based scholar Yuan Hongbin stated that based on his understanding, the vast majority of Chinese officials are now the two-faced people Xi Jinping refers to. The authorities currently rely on a superintelligent system to monitor officials, but if a major event occurs, this system could fail. He emphasized that all conditions for significant political change in China are already in place. Now, it's just a matter of waiting for a historical opportunity. Airports, restaurants, shopping malls, and streets are deserted. A deadly silence blankets China, and the dire economy is visible to the naked eye. A blogger filming a video lamented, "Is outbound travel so bleak now?" At Pudong Airport Satellite Terminal, there's hardly any foot traffic. Apart from the duty-free shops, few stores are open, and foreign travelers waiting for flights are just lying around. In recent years, as China's economy has continued to decline, consumer spending has significantly downgraded, with substantial cuts in tourism and transportation expenses. At the same time, the number of travelers visiting China for tourism or business has drastically decreased, leading to lower passenger loads on international flights operated by major airlines. Multiple online videos show that major airports, including Shanghai Hongqiao Airport, Shanghai Pudong Airport, and Beijing Capital Airport, have sparse crowds with terminals looking eerily empty, like ghost towns. A person filming a video stated, "Let's check out the duty-free shops at Beijing Capital Airport. The passenger flow departing from Terminal 3 is noticeably lower now. The duty-free shops for outbound travelers are desolate, with hardly any customers, just staff. This entire row is basically shuttered. It's nothing like it used to be, and I don't know what's going on." China's aviation industry continues to struggle, with the three major state-owned airlines reporting losses for 5 consecutive years. On the evening of April 29th, Air China, China Eastern Airlines, and China Southern Airlines released their first quarter performance reports, showing that these three major state-owned airlines remain in severe financial deficit. People are opting for more rational consumption because many industries are cutting salaries and laying off workers. Some are too burdened by mortgage payments to spend. According to the Wall Street Journal, China's real estate bubble has led to a wealth loss of 18 trillion US dollars, equivalent to 60,000 US dollars per household, surpassing the 11 trillion US dollars lost in the 2008 US subprime crisis. China's domestic demand is weak, and consumption in first-tier cities continues to decline. According to reports, Beijing's retail sales of consumer goods in March this year totaled 104.9 billion yuan, down 9.9% from last March. Shanghai's retail sales for March were 128 billion yuan, a sharp 14.1% drop from the previous year. If even Beijing and Shanghai can't boost consumption, it's unlikely that second- or third-tier cities, counties, or rural areas will fare better. Beijing resident Mr. Qian told Radio Free Asia, "Many shops and restaurants have closed. The bustling scenes of Beijing's past are gone. Now, most places are shuttered or out of business, eerily quiet, with too many for rent signs." A video showed that in Beijing's CBD at the place, from the basement dining area to the first and second floors' luxury brand stores, most shops have closed. One blogger remarked, "The weirdest, most mysterious business phenomenon has emerged. 1.4 billion people have collectively stopped eating out. Restaurateurs say people aren't dining at restaurants anymore, they're buying groceries to cook at home. Vegetable market vendors then say people are ordering takeout online. Delivery platforms, however, complain that orders have collapsed. Restaurant owners in first and second-tier cities say they've lost 1 to 2 million customers a year, all returning to their hometowns. Those who went back to their hometowns say their hometowns are as deserted as ghost towns. Even stranger, from Beijing's Guomao to Hangzhou's Binjiang, from Shenzhen's Tech Park to Wuhan's Optics Valley, every city is witnessing the disappearance of millions of people. As the economy slumps, the authorities' stability maintenance budget is also shrinking. Beijing-based dissident Jifeng recently told Radio Free Asia, "Government officials are no longer allowed to indulge in lavish dining." This channel has been cut off due to tight funds. Take my state security contacts, for example. Reimbursements are now a problem. They have to cover expenses themselves, and reimbursement can take half a year, so they're reluctant. Before, they could borrow money and get reimbursed later, but now, borrowing is forbidden. Jifeng added that in the past, state security agents would come to Beijing and stay for 10 days or 2 weeks sightseeing on the side. Now they rush in and out in 2 or 3 days and need prior approval from higher-ups. Regarding the economic downturn in first-tier cities like Beijing and Shenzhen, where once thriving commercial districts are now nearly deserted, a netizen remarked, "I heard Japan conducted a salt consumption survey suggesting China's population is now under 900 million. Many experts also point out that the 1.4 billion population figure is fake, and China's current population may be below 1 billion or even lower." Despite declaring a fight to the end and refusing to yield, why has the CCP suddenly agreed to a trade negotiation deal and consented to reducing tariffs on U.S. imports to 10%? As reported in our previous updates, the U.S. and China have reached a preliminary trade agreement, with both sides agreeing to suspend reciprocal tariffs for 90 days. Facing U.S. President Trump's tariff policies, the CCP shifted from an initially hardline, tit-for-tat stance to securing this deal, a process described as a roller coaster. Commentators note that despite Beijing's efforts to portray concessions as part of an equal dialogue, the rapid deterioration of China's economic fundamentals has evidently exceeded expectations, forcing policymakers to weigh political risks against economic collapse. After 2 days of closed-door trade talks, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced in Geneva on May 12th that both sides agreed to suspend reciprocal tariffs for 90 days. According to a joint statement, starting May 14th, the U.S. will temporarily reduce tariffs on Chinese imports from 145% to 30%, while China will lower tariffs on U.S. imports from 125% to 10%. Associate Professor Sun Kuo-xiang from the Department of International Affairs and Business at Taiwan's Nanhua University stated, "The progress in the Geneva talks is essentially a crisis-driven tactical adjustment, not a strategic shift. Under the triple pressures of a bursting real estate bubble, local debt crises, and shrinking exports, China's economy can no longer sustain a prolonged trade war." Although Beijing attempts to frame concessions as equal dialogue, the speed of economic deterioration has clearly surpassed expectations, compelling decision-makers to balance political risk with the threat of economic collapse. Chinese capital market veteran Xi'an commented, "The ongoing economic downturn, exacerbated by the U.S.-China tariff war, has severely damaged the CCP's economic engine, foreign trade exports. This foreign trade crisis has triggered an economic crisis, spreading across industries with the financial sector particularly hard hit." The substantive progress in U.S.-China trade talks reveals that the CCP's economy is critically ill, threatening its political stability. The CCP has effectively conceded defeat and was forced to the negotiating table. According to Wind data, in the first quarter of 2025, 48 companies in China's A-share semiconductor supply chain reported declining net profits, with 13 shifting from profit to loss. Many companies cited challenges such as weak downstream demand and pressure on product prices in their financial reports. China's next major crisis may be a wave of bank failures. Data from Yikai Global indicates that in 2024, nearly 200 small and medium-sized banks in China were liquidated, far surpassing the total over the previous 3 years. Xi'an noted, "Due to the nature of the banking industry, its bankruptcy cycle lags behind the restructuring phase of the real economy, but is inevitable. Recently, significant capital has flowed into the bankruptcy restructuring sector, underscoring the current challenges facing China's economy." Associate Professor Sun Kuo-xiang added that the true state of China's financial sector is difficult for outsiders to fully assess, but inferences can be drawn from the impact of other sectors on financial institutions. He explained, "High unemployment, declining consumption due to falling incomes, and inadequate social security make it challenging to stimulate spending. These structural issues combined with persistent local debt problems mean that in 2025, China's financial system faces multiple pressures. Economic growth has slowed, and the ongoing real estate crisis has heightened risks in the banking system, intertwined with policy interventions, creating a complex situation. Falling housing prices increase the risk of bad debts. Sun Kuo-xiang noted, the Chinese government has implemented measures such as strengthened financial oversight and introduced 8 incremental policies. Expectations of loose monetary policy suggest that China's financial system is currently balancing risk stabilization with growth preservation. The real estate crisis and banking vulnerabilities remain the greatest hidden risks. Despite intensified policy interventions, slow economic structural transformation, a worsening external environment, and opaque data make it difficult to fully evaluate the financial system's true risks. In the short term, regional bank crises and capital outflow pressures may become more pronounced. U.S. House unanimously passes Falun Gong Protection Act, earning widespread praise. Bill delivers a resounding blow to the CCP. May 13th is World Falun Dafa Day, marking the 33rd anniversary of Falun Dafa's introduction to the world this year. On May 5th, the U.S. House of Representatives unanimously passed the End Forced Organ Harvesting and Falun Gong Protection Act of 2025, which imposes legal sanctions on individuals involved in the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners and the forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong members. Observers consider this a landmark event, reflecting a consensus among the American people to stop the Chinese Communist Party's crimes of forced organ harvesting and providing legal support for the Falun Gong community. Introduced by Republican Representative Scott Perry of Pennsylvania, the bill aims to compel the U.S. government to address the CCP's crimes against humanity involving the forced organ harvesting of Falun Gong practitioners and to impose legal sanctions on those participating in or facilitating these atrocities. Before the vote, Representative Perry addressed his colleagues in the Capitol, urging them to unite in opposing the CCP's systematic persecution of Falun Gong practitioners. He emphasized, "The United States will always defend truthfulness, compassion, and forbearance." New York-based attorney Ye Ning stated that the House's passage of the Falun Gong Protection Act reflects the broad will of the American people. House members are directly elected by the public, with seats allocated based on each state's population, earning the chamber the nickname the People's House. A companion bill in the Senate, introduced by Texas Republican Senator Ted Cruz, is awaiting a vote. If passed, the Falun Gong Protection Act will be sent to President Trump for his signature, officially becoming federal law. Since the CCP launched its brutal persecution of Falun Gong in 1999, support for Falun Gong practitioners has been a bipartisan issue in the U.S. Congress. Western scholar Dean Pearman once pointed out that Master Li Hongzhi, the founder of Falun Gong, is deeply revered by the public, which sparked intense jealousy in Jiang Zemin. This jealousy was the fundamental reason behind his suppression of Falun Gong. At the same time, as an authoritarian regime that promotes atheism, the CCP fundamentally does not permit the public to hold genuine spiritual beliefs. Falun Gong, a Buddhist cultivation practice that teaches people to be virtuous, is naturally seen by the CCP as a threat to its dictatorial tyranny. Jiang Zemin's jealousy and the CCP's oppressive regime fueled each other, initiating a brutal persecution campaign against millions of innocent citizens. In November 1999, Senior House Representative Chris Smith initiated House Concurrent Resolution 218, calling on the CCP to cease its persecution of Falun Gong. In his speech, Representative Perry stated that the CCP launched a brutal persecution of Falun Gong, employing methods such as illegal detention, forced labor, torture, and even large-scale forced organ harvesting, a crime he equated to a holocaust. Perry specifically highlighted and cited the final verdict of the UK-based Independent People's Tribunal, China Tribunal, which confirmed the CCP's crimes of forcibly harvesting organs from Falun Gong practitioners. Subsequently, the House passed multiple resolutions urging the CCP to release detained Falun Gong practitioners and end forced organ harvesting. Yenning noted that previous resolutions conveyed a stance and sentiment but lacked legal enforceability. The Falun Gong Protection Act, however, will not only become formal federal law but also impose tangible penalties and sanctions on perpetrators, marking a milestone. If these perpetrators appear in the U.S., they will be arrested and tried under federal law. Economic sanctions, visa bans, and prohibitions on academic and medical exchanges related to organ harvesting send a strong signal. Once this bill becomes federal law, the CCP will have reasons to be wary, Yanning said. The bill's passage, after more than 2 decades of Falun Gong practitioners' persistent resistance to persecution, demonstrates the power of their faith and unyielding spirit, which has awakened the international community. Yanning said, "I've handled related cases and witnessed the severe repression in China, including forced organ harvesting and physical annihilation. Many people may not realize that countless Falun Gong practitioners, despite facing repeated arrests and imprisonment, have relentlessly distributed 9 commentaries on the Communist Party and truth-clarifying materials. The significance of this bill lies in its ability to shake the foundations and awaken humanity's numbed conscience, far outweighing its punitive impact." In recent years, the CCP has extended its persecution overseas, employing tactics such as directing agents to threaten and disrupt the Xi'an performing arts troupe in the U.S., manipulating media and social media to demonize Falun Gong, and defaming Xi'an. Additionally, the CCP has exploited loopholes in U.S. law to launch baseless lawsuits and legal warfare. Yanning believes that, at such a critical juncture, the House's unanimous passage of the Falun Gong Protection Act is a decisive blow to the CCP. Once implemented, the bill will enable the U.S. government to freeze perpetrators' assets in the U.S., deny them entry, revoke their visas, and impose fines. Dragon-shaped. Flying object reappears in Xi'an. Netizen records stunning. Dragon roar, Jinan witnesses purple night sky. On May 2nd, 3 dragon-shaped unidentified flying objects appeared in the night sky during a thunderstorm in Xi'an. On the evening of May 8th, these dragon-shaped objects reappeared in Xi'an, accompanied by a deep, highly penetrating dragon roar, sparking widespread discussion. Some videos showed a massive, translucent shadow with scale-like reflections in the sky. Additionally, a netizen named Lena reported hearing a rumbling sound resembling a dragon roar, akin to the bellowing of an old ox, unusually deep. She noted that the sound came from the south side of the Kindling Mountains, with no nearby construction sites, cars, or motorcycles audible at the scene. She described the sound as having a vast, penetrating quality, as if coming from a distance. Her video garnered significant attention and heated discussion. Mainland Chinese media also covered the event, prompting skepticism from some atheists. The video's uploader issued a unified response. First, the video has no post-production or intentional editing. Second, it is not a police vehicle, fighter jet, airplane, or human-made device. Third, netizens from different areas of Xi'an also captured the same sound. She concluded by urging others to respect nature and revere the unknown, emphasizing that humans are too insignificant in comparison. Some netizens referenced ancient texts, noting that Zibuyu records, "In thunderstorms and darkness, dragons come wailing. They sound like the roar of an ox." The history of the Song dynasty also mentions dragons with a sound like the bellowing of an ox. On May 2nd, videos capturing unidentified flying objects in Xi'an's night sky had already caused a stir. The footage showed multiple dragon-like dark silhouettes rapidly moving through the clouds, with trajectories resembling spiraling or diving motions, akin to swimming dragons. These videos sparked intense online debate. Additionally, on May 9th, a video circulating on Chinese social media showed that after heavy rain in Jinan, Shandong, the night sky turned purple, sparking heated discussions. Some netizens commented, "So beautiful." Others remarked, "Purple air from the east, change is coming." From all of us at New Century, thank you for tuning in. If you value honest journalism, please subscribe, leave a comment, and share your thoughts. Until we meet again, stay informed and stay safe.